Heyo, this is the Beyond the Dojo podcast. I'm Lauren.
I'm Jeremiah.
You know, I didn't think about this until earlier, but sometimes when we're waiting before class and like I'm hanging out with the little kids who are running around playing tag or whatever, sometimes some of them don't want to play. Mm-hmm. And so I'll be like, hey, you want to see a picture of my cat? And I'll grab my phone and show them a picture of Coco. Is that creepy?
Probably.
I mean, a lot of them come to class and they start talking about their dogs and stuff, so...
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, hey, little boy, I have some candy in my van. You want to come see it?
There you go.
Well, they always think she's cute, so...
Yeah.
It works out. She's over here.
Pain.
She's over here by me. Cool. So today we wanted to do a little fun one. Well, we just did another podcast about an hour ago, but you don't know that. You do now. But we wanted to do a quick episode. We thought about this quite a while ago. If you could only train with or fight with between 3 and 5 moves, and I'll say 5 is quite a bit, so maybe veering toward the 3 side, what movements would they be and why? So let's just maybe go one move at a time. Let me go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was thinking about this. I think the first one I would for sure have is a palm heel, like open hand kind of thing.
Okay.
Not like the whole traditional like super super tight hand maybe, but slightly more open. I mean, and we're talking about necessarily like I guess we can say blocks or strikes, but if we're talking about just like striking, there's a lot of surfaces that you can hit with an open palm, and if we're just talking about the actual palm,
You just want to Will Smith somebody.
well, is it a palm heel if you slap them?
Yeah.
Is that a type of... Okay, comment below if that is a palm heel. If you slap somebody. I don't actually know. I don't know. Well, I mean, you're using your palm, so I guess that's a weapon. So maybe we should say weapons.
Yeah.
Techniques, weapons,
Yeah.
something, you guys follow what I'm saying. But anyway, but you can do a lot with that, because you can, if you're doing self-defense type stuff, you got multiple surfaces that you're hitting someone's face with, so their nose, their eyes, because of your fingers and stuff. You could slap them. You can always turn their head around and do all kinds of fun stuff. You can technically use it as like joint locks, crap like that.
That's a stretch.
If you're hitting on the side of someone's arm.
Stretch.
Okay, well, even if we're just doing like just linear palm heels and just going like face level and stuff, I would be happy with that. I like that one.
I like elbows.
Elbows, okay.
Yeah. Just because, if you're going to get in a fight, it eventually gets really close. So, doing a good elbow. Knowing how to do a good elbow.
We really don't train that much.
Yeah, it's shotokankaratehumanperformance. We rarely change elbows, but what everybody else does.
I know, yeah. There was a video that somebody sent me. I don't remember the exact style of karate, but he did like a crap ton of elbows, and dude, they can be so effective too.
Yeah.
But you get to be super super close. I mean, you're like that distance from somebody.
How close do you think you are in a fight?
Well, I get that you'd be pretty close. You're trying to not be close if you can help it, but
Depends.
And my arms are a lot shorter than your arms, so I have to be really close to use an elbow on somebody.
That's your perspective, but for someone like me, getting closer might be better.
Yeah. Wrap somebody up.
Well, yeah, because if you can control them and elbow them, you're done.
And then you can also use those elbows for your joint breaks and stuff like that. Snapping somebody's elbow. You can't snap somebody's elbow.
You're all about
I'm just
the joint
thinking
breaks.
about, can we break someone's arm? How many ways can we break someone's arm? Maybe we should just change the topic of this podcast. How many ways can we break someone's arm? Okay, so elbows.
Elbows.
What all targets do you usually use for elbows? Attack with
Side
elbows.
of the head, side by the ear, the jaw joint, throat. Anywhere near the neck. I mean, you could do the solar plex and stuff like that, but it's kind of a little bit of a stretch. Yeah, under the chin. So.
Yeah.
Think about being in a clinch and then but you go from there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So the next one, we're talking about training and like maybe real life stuff if we had to. I'm going to go ahead and say front kick. Even though, like, if it was, like, self-defense type stuff, you probably wouldn't want to take your feet off the ground if you could help it. But there is a little bit of versatility there. Like, I can use front kicks super close range and, you know, at least do a little bit of damage because I can get my leg up pretty high and all that stuff. So I like them for that. Plus, you can also do them really low and still do them close range. So you can attack joints and, you know, even especially if you're wearing shoes, just kicking someone in the shin. It's like, hurts real bad. So, probably front kick too. And, you know, I was thinking about it the other day. Like, we did a class last Monday and I had us do, like, some blocking stuff, maneuvering around another person, but then trying to incorporate leg techniques of different types. And I'm not very good at sweeps, and I know that most of the time that motion is different. But technically, I mean, like pulling that heel back of a front kick, it can be one version of like sweeping, right? If you have a person in the right spot. No.
I avoid any kind of pulling action.
Yeah. Okay.
Just it doesn't.
Yeah.
Someone well planted, it's not going to work as well.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I get that.
And then the pulling back towards you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the smartest thing. I mean, it works. Don't get me wrong, it works.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of things that have to happen besides just sweeping them, you know?
Yeah. Timing, distancing,
right. I mean,
their weight distribution.
Yeah, you got to kind of set it up for it to be a pull thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, front kicks to me, I was listening to the podcast yesterday of what was that?
Oh, that's the Humble Dojo podcast. They're interviewing Guy Berdur.
They're interviewing Guy Berdur, and he said something that made a lot of sense. He says, you know, he was talking about front kicks, right? And you think about just the front kick, like the normal ball of the foot attack. And he goes, but, you know, you can think of hikiashi, the rising of the knee, all that stuff. And the heel to the back of a calf.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God, dude. That would just... And that's, to me, you know, you never think of it that way, right? But...
Mm-hmm.
all parts of that technique would be kind of effective. I think that's more effective than you trying to sweep somebody.
Okay, I see that.
You know what I'm saying? And being like a kick idea. You could do like step behind them and, you know, cut your foot back.
So if you're stepping kind of around the person, you maneuver off to the side.
Kind of throw them off to... There's a lot of things there. I think I agree with you with the front kick because it's one of the most useful, and if you keep it low, it's pretty powerful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kicking side the knee, kicking down in front. I mean, anything to the legs.
Kicking somebody in the thigh, on the inside of the thigh.
Yeah, anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere that's, you know, to me it'd be like the joint, so the knee joint. Kicking them in the hip joint. Mm-hmm. You know, that's, people think, oh, kick him in the crotch. Yeah, you can do that, but kick him in the hip joint's just as effective. It's extremely painful, and it takes a lot of someone with high pain tolerance to put their weight back on that hip.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's that whole self-defense situation that happened last year where that guy was kind of pursuing me as I was like thinking I was going to kick him in the crotch, and then like I didn't, and I think it's just so much habit of not kicking people in the crotch. So I did kick him in the front of the hip, and he was like in a crazy state, so he continued pursuing, but knocked him back pretty good. And I would assume that with any person who was not in that mental state, it probably would have done some pretty serious damage. So
Possibly.
Yeah. So what's your second one?
I'm agree with the kick.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Any other reasons for you?
No, it's good to be able to attack the legs. Mm-hmm. And front kick, to me, is a more legitimate.
Yeah.
You know, just more utilitarian. Like, roundhouses could work to the legs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But once again, if you're not in the greatest footing, you happen to plant your foot too much and you twist and you mess yourself up trying to hurt, either protect yourself or fight somebody, it's not really worth the risk to me. I'd rather, just plant the foot, kick straight in, move around, change my angle, but not do a roundhouse in a sense.
Yeah.
The roundhouses are effective, but
they can be slower.
My concern is, my approach is to eliminate any possibilities of injuring yourself.
Yeah.
So keep it straightforward. You know what I mean? Like a straight, punches that aren't crazy, jab or hook or something like that. Fine. Elbows, great. Front kicks, knees. I mean, something that's very, where you put your foot down, you're not worried about twisting it, and it's not you don't have to be well coordinated.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about the surface that you're on.
Yeah, well, the more moving parts you have, the more risk
Right.
you have for screwing up one of those moving parts, especially that root foot.
Safe, approach.
Yeah.
Safe on my body,
Yeah.
effective.
I think even just for training purposes, like training a front kick, I have found, obviously you got to have pretty strong hip flexors in order to be able to quickly lift that leg and extend and be able to control the position. And then also slightly flexible hip flexors, along the same token, because you're standing on the opposite leg and you're trying to control, your position without doing anything crazy with your hips and trunk. But then also I feel like if you have really bad pelvic control, it shows when you do a front kick. Like people who tend to throw their shoulders back when they do a front kick rather than keeping their torso more controlled and then actually using like the root leg and the hips to drive the technique. I feel like there's a lot of great teaching points there. So if you're just looking at it from a training perspective, I think there's a lot to be learned there as well. And also, we've talked about learning, basically training Kihon type movements so that you can use that movement application wise at any point in the range. So for me, front kick was the first movement that made that make sense, because we used to only train front kick to kick far away. And when I started, actually, we went through a period where I was trying to get my knee up sooner rather than allowing my leg to swing out before the knee elevates, trying to lift that knee as soon as possible. Training that, and then sorry, the cat is messing with her bowl. Quit. Training to kick at a much shorter distance. You're being forced to get your knee up sooner, get your foot in position sooner, but then you have more utility with the technique. So you can do those in close kicks if need be. You just control it a whole lot better throughout the entire range. So I don't know. I like it for that reason, just because of the history I have with the move. So,
yeah.
Okay. What's your third one? I kind of got to think about it too. To be honest, I haven't been mine out yet.
So the third one would be more like an idea over a technique, individual technique. So the technique is shifting.
Okay.
But the idea is like shifting from back stance to front stance, being able to shift my weight around in a position that will help me create power.
Okay.
So I would say shifting.
Okay.
It also goes in line with being able to change your angle in reference to the attack. Mm-hmm. Changing your distance, being able to be mobile around the person, I think is important.
Okay.
So shifting.
Okay. All right. You didn't give me a lot of time to think. Now I gotta think. Well, how about how do you? What is that? What about that in training is important to you?
Well, it's straight up applicable. You could use it directly in anything you do. It's, dojo training, sparring, self-defense. Mm-hmm. Being able to move and being able to kind of shift your weight around and create a more dynamic technique with and better targeting. Being able to be more evasive. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to meet force on force, you could change your angle slightly and be able to block easier, stuff like that. The principle in itself, to me, it makes a lot of sense to be more fluid. And it doesn't mean you have to be fast, it just means you have to be evasive, elusive. Try to get away from someone, being hard target to hit. And then creating a nice line of power at the right angle, sometimes is really effective. I hit you dead square in the chest all I want, but if I could shift slightly over and hit you in the jaw joint or the side and neck, I get a whole different kind of response. And that's kind of what I've been thinking with the shifting.
Gotcha.
I only thought of 3, so.
Okay. I hadn't thought of any until I set the camera up, so I'm doing this as we go. On the fly. I think for the sake of my own vanity, doing side thrust kick. And I'm not meaning like what you see in tournaments where they go, and they lift their leg up toward the ceiling all graceful. I mean like real side thrust kicks where you're pivoting on the floor foot. You're actually getting a slightly like rotated away position with the hip. You're turning the foot down because of the position of the hip. You're hitting with the heel, that kind of thing. That's the strongest technique I have. I could probably hurt most people I come up against with it, given the opportunity to use it. Now, granted, it's not super practical, but I like it. I like slamming the bag into the wall to do a side thrust kick. But to me, that path, I think I learned a decent enough technique with that one early enough that it just feels really nice and really natural to me. It is one of those that has moving parts, not as many as a roundhouse kick, but you do have to pivot on the floor foot in order to make it work. And if you don't pivot on your floor foot and just try to lift your leg, you could really screw up your hips. But I like it whenever, done correctly. I just like that I can deliver a lot of force with it. But then also it can be adapted a little bit. So you could do it till where you're not getting as much rotation out of the foot. You're kicking a little bit lower. You're attacking the joints, attacking the knee particularly, or grazing the front of the shin, or attacking someone's foot, using it more like a stomp. So you could say side thrust kick stomping type techniques. And I know that oftentimes in self-defense, stomps are taught as part of, like a self-defense curriculum. I do think they're kind of difficult to deliver correctly unless you practice them. But that type of stomping technique, I just feel like is really easy to make power. Just because your glutes are the main driver. So, I mean, I'm not saying I got big glutes, but,
that makes sense.
I like it. So,
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, if you get a combination of all of those three, maybe palm, heel, front kick, thrust kick, I think it'd be good to go.
I think, I said I only got 3, but I'll mention the last one would be more of this idea of a good kamae.
Okay.
Like a good...
Like blocking?
Good positioning of the hands and using them as a parry or blocks or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just because without it, you're always thinking offensively, not really being balanced. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I mean, we obviously took it from the offensive perspective, but realistically, we'd include some blocks in there. If I was going to include only one block, it would be more of an outside to inside motion. So your outside block type of feel, because that's going to be probably one of outside block, outside to inside and up to down is always going to be your fastest movements because your chest and your lats are stronger drivers.
I wonder why we always do down block. Like almost all karate styles emphasize a down block when they turn, down block to initiate everything. I wonder why that's the block.
Like where that came from?
Yeah, why is that one instead of it sounds stupid, but a rising block,
Yeah.
When you get in front stance, do a rising block instead of down block. I wonder what was the intention of that to begin with.
Or you would think even like an inside block, like getting in position more like a kamae.
Right. Something, right?
I wonder if it's, I mean, this is completely speculation, but maybe it's like to try to still emphasize that downward feeling, like keeping the shoulders down, engaging the lats, getting in a lower, longer position rather than thinking up in the shoulders and up off the ground. I mean, I don't know, but that's all I can think of. Just saying from experience, watching, and also from my own training, like knowing that I tend to get up into the shoulders and into the neck. Doing something like a down block is more difficult to do that, I think.
Still feasible.
Yeah. Maybe.
So what you working on?
I have been working on the same thing that you're working on.
What's up?
Karate. That combo from Steve where you do like a jab and kind of slide the front foot forward, and then you use the front arm to do a down block and simultaneously slide the front leg back, and then you do this like reverse punch step in kind of deal. And I worked on a few different aspects of it. What I was working on before was not swinging my leg around when I step forward, because weirdly enough, I've observed this on other people, and then I realized I was doing it too. When people like are in a kamae position and they're like trying to time like a punch like right as they go to step in, they'll tend to like swing their back leg around to the side rather than taking a linear motion. I know that a lot of people emphasize crescent stepping. We don't do that because it's slower. We try to just go straight, like take a straight step forward. That's something we got from Steve. But I was actually swinging my right leg out to the side, left leg was fine. So I was working on that before. Now it's a lot more of like the front leg. So whenever I'm doing the jab, I'm trying to not plop my freaking foot. So trying to actually control the movement with the back leg rather than just like flopping my weight around all over the place and hoping it does something. And when I watch the video, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. But the undoing of that has been kind of difficult. Yeah, honestly, like I worked on Oizuki for like a long, long time and it still is not perfect, but jabbing and making power is so hard. Like, I'm not super upper body, like, that strong. I mean, for a lady, I guess I am. But, you know, I'm not that strong. So, then it feels even worse. Because you're trying to make it strong. And you're trying to do something effective with it. And there's not a lot of, like, there's no, like, hip rotation necessarily behind it and all that kind of stuff. And that's not the same as, like, as a reverse punch. So, I just don't feel like it's as easy to get force behind it. So, but coordinating the back.
There's a little rotation.
There is, but not the same amount as
Shomen to Hamni with a jab.
Well, you're not completely in Shomen. You're like in a Kawai position when you're.
So there's rotation.
There is, but I'm saying it's not as much as doing a reverse punch. So with a reverse punch, I feel pretty strong, but with a jab, trying to coordinate the back leg, and not rotate the hips necessarily in that way. Because whenever you're driving off, like if my right leg is in the back and my left leg is in the front, if I'm extending my back leg, it's easier in my mind to extend that leg and rotate that right hip around. Versus if you're rotating the other way to drive the jab, it just feels kind of weird to almost elongate out, straighten that back, push off that back leg and then rotate the hips the other way if you are rotating, which I'm not really. But extending off that back leg and jabbing, just the coordination of it is really tough. So trying to get the coordination of it and not plop it into a longer front stance is kind of the thing I'm working on. Yeah.
Rarely controlled.
Pretty much through and through. So, everyday battle. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, it's been real. Thanks for popping in for just a couple minutes with us. And obviously, as usual, if you've got any topic requests or questions, you can pop it down in the comments if you guys are on YouTube.
Please.
Please. And that is all. Bye.
Bye.